If you've been hoping for an easy and inexpensive way to start migrating towards high-definition production, these cameras are a great way to do it. For an experienced ENG EFP shooter, these cameras might not look and feel like the big shoulder-mounted beta cams you've used in the past, but the Z1, and to a lesser extent the FX1, are true professional cameras capable of producing excellent results in the hands of a trained operator. Both camcorders share the same chassis design and most of the same functions. However, there are about 40 important features on the Z1 that are not found on the FX1, including XLR audio inputs, timecode preset, timecode drop or non-drop frame select, switchable between PAL and NTSC, simultaneous use of LCD monitor in the viewfinder. Viewfinder is switchable between black and white and color, hypergain, an hours meter, audio noise reduction, audio limiter, safe zone markers, DV cam recording capability, peaking levels, and many more. For this presentation, we'll primarily be demonstrating with a Z1 camcorder, even though most of the information we cover will also apply to the FX1. If you have an FX1, we encourage you to print out the list of differences we have provided in the Extras folder on this DVD. You can then refer to this chart as you watch this video to quickly identify features that aren't available or are different on the FX1. The first thing you'll notice about the camera is that it looks good. From the rectangular matte box style lens hood to the all-black color, the Z1 looks like a serious, albeit small, professional camera. But the most impressive thing about this camcorder is its magnificent HD footage. Its three 16:9 native 1/3 inch 1.1 megapixel CCDs generate some great looking video. As mentioned previously, the Z1 is unique in its ability to record HDV and DV cam images at 60i, 50i, 30, 25, or 24 frames per second, in either standard definition or high definition. It won't record in the 720p version of HDV that JVC uses, but it will playback tape shot in 720p. You may have heard that these cameras are not able to shoot in 24p, but then that's not such a bad thing. The Z1 gives you great footage that's shot at 24 frames per second using interpolation that looks as good or better than any 24p. In fact, Sony probably could have gotten away with calling it 24p because the 24 frame recording mode looks about the same. So don't let that 24p buzzword get to you. This camera really can give you great-looking, smoothly cadenced 24-frame footage that looks very much like 24p, without the post-production headaches of converting between different frame rates. To minimize wasted time scrolling through menus, the most commonly used functions can be readily accessed via the numerous buttons and controls found on all sides of the camera. The camcorder is flexible to use and often offers multiple ways of doing something. This is not a camcorder that must be used one way and only one way. It weighs in at just under 5 pounds and feels well balanced. Unfortunately, it's not designed to rest on your shoulder, and that's probably the hardest thing to get used to if you're experienced using full-size Betacam style cameras. As with any small camera of this type, holding the Z1 out in front can seem awkward and take some getting used to. So we recommend you consider getting a shoulder brace like this one from StudioOneProductions.com. It comes with a pistol grip, but if you take the pistol grip off, the camera will rest on your shoulder just like any full-size shoulder-mounted camera, if that's what you're used to. To further help with stability, the camera has a built-in optical stabilization system called Super Steady Shot, and it really does work. Another thing that's going to take getting used to for experienced Betacam shooters is the LCD Color Viewfinder. It's not a high-resolution black and white CRT viewfinder like those found on more expensive cameras, so picture quality naturally is not going to be as good, which makes focusing more challenging. Fortunately, You might not even have to use the viewfinder very much anyway, because there's also a 3.5-inch 16:9 widescreen LCD monitor. For clarity's sake, from here on out in a video, if we say viewfinder, we're referring to the viewfinder back here. If we say monitor, we're referring to the 3.5-inch screen up front. On the Z1, both the viewfinder and the monitor can be powered simultaneously. Although the monitor is supposed to have about the same number of pixels as the viewfinder, you'd think spreading them out over a larger area would diminish the quality. Not so. It's a hybrid design that creates great-looking images. Underneath where the monitor was stowed, you'll find quite a few buttons and switches. It's mostly pretty standard stuff you've seen plenty of times before on other cameras. On the front end of the camera, Sony has provided an excellent Carl Zeiss lens because, as any photographer or cameraman will tell you, use a cheap lens and your images will suffer. The f1.6 lens has the same fully coated glass as is used on their well-respected Zeiss prime lenses. The lens has a 12:1 zoom range from 4.5 mm to 54 mm and accepts standard 72 mm photographic filters, the same ones used on SLRs. The 35 mm SLR equivalent focal length would be from about 35 mm to 420 mm. That's a pretty good range for most shooting. And Sony also offers an optional 0.8x wide-angle conversion lens for times when you need to get a bit wider. The focusing ring is big, easy to handle, and surprisingly precise. Of course, as you would expect, this camera does have autofocus and it works pretty well. Zooming is as smooth and sensitive to the touch as most broadcast lenses. Besides the familiar variable speed rocker switch on the hand grip, there's another zoom control on top of the handle. And you can even connect an optional external zoom control for your tripod handle. And if none of that suits you, you can always zoom by simply turning the zoom ring on the lens. Exposure can be set to auto, or it can be controlled manually. But there isn't a standard iris ring on the lens barrel. The iris control is actually this silver knob here. All in all, you'll like the lens. Behind the lens, you'll find a neutral density filter switch with 3 settings: off, 1, and 2. These are real optical filters and are not just electronically changing the gain. ND1 cuts the light to 1/6. That's about 2 2/3 stops. And ND2 cuts the light to 1/32. That's a 5-stop difference. Down below there, you'll see a 2-position white balance memory switch, a gain switch with 3 programmable levels, and a group of 6 assign buttons. What are assign buttons? Well, you may have seen similar buttons on other cameras called personal function buttons or something like that. Basically, you can customize these 6 buttons to quickly access any of 15 frequently used controls you want to easily turn on and off without having to scroll through layers of menus every time. Functions such as record review, hypergain, and steady shot are assignable to any of the 6 buttons. Another nice feature is the shot transition buttons found directly under the handle. These buttons allow for smooth automatic transitions between 2 settings, A and B. Functions such as focus, zoom, iris, gain, shutter, white balance, or any combination of these can be programmed into the 2 presets. Then when execute is pressed, the camera will smoothly change from setting A to setting B or vice versa. Just below these buttons, you'll see 2 format indicators to confirm and remind you of which format you're currently shooting in. Back here, there's the cassette compartment and the eject button. Pretty self-explanatory. The camera uses regular DV cassettes, no matter what mode you're recording in. But Sony recommends their new HDV digital master tapes for extra insurance against dropouts. Below the tape bay are 4 manual controls that can be used to turn on or off manual control of iris, gain, white balance, and shutter speed. These buttons only become active when the auto lock switch has been set to the manual position. And to lock in any manual settings so they can't be accidentally changed, the switch can be moved to the hold position. On the rear of the camera, the input level for the 2 audio channels can each be independently set to auto or manual. When you're shooting in the manual mode, the recording levels are adjusted with these 2 dials. The zebra and peaking controls are on the same switch, so you can't have both of them turned on at the same time. If you're not familiar with zebra, it's a quick way to tell if part of your scene might be overexposed, and peaking is used to aid focusing. Neither of them is recorded to the tape, and they're covered in more detail in their own chapter. The Status Check button allows you to easily display 4 to 6 pages of information showing all the current camera settings for things like audio levels, audio input source, white balance, output signal, camera record mode, and many others at any time during recording or playback. The Picture Profile button lets you recall a custom set of camera settings from one of the 6 memories. Each memory position can store a number of custom camera settings such as black stretch, skin tone detail, auto white balance sensitivity, sharpness, and many other picture quality controls to suit various shooting conditions and styles. For example, suppose there's a certain set of camera settings, or a look as it's called, that you like to use whenever you're shooting interviews, and a different look for outdoor sports. Well, instead of having to go through all the camera settings and change them one by one every time you want to switch from one look to another, you can store up to 6 different looks in the memories and recall them at any time with the press of a button. The Select Rotary Push button is used to scroll through menus. You highlight what you want and select it by pressing the button in. The Menu button is used to access the main menu, and this is where you can change nearly all of the camera settings. The Personal Menu button allows you to make your own customized menu showing up to 28 frequently used menu items, so you don't have to keep drilling down through the main menu to reach them. You can even change the order in which they are displayed. Here you have the battery and the battery release button. Again, pretty self-explanatory. It's interesting to note that the camera uses about 6% more power when it's shooting in the HDV mode. There's a 4-pin iLink or FireWire jack to facilitate digital transfer of audio, video, and command signals to a computer or other compatible device. The type of signal being output from the camera at any given time can be set using the menus. Since the camera has the advantage of onboard format conversion, you can easily shoot in one format and output in a different format. Like I said, it's a very flexible camera. In addition, these signals can also be output via any of the analog component, composite, or S-video connectors found under this cover. On the hand grip, there's a power switch, a headphone jack, and a link connector for hooking up compatible accessories, such as remote zoom and focus control. Up here, there's a previously mentioned zoom rocker switch, and an interesting feature called expanded focus. Because these cameras don't have a high-resolution CRT viewfinder, it's very hard at times to be sure you're really in focus. To help, the expanded focus function is a digital zoom that electronically, not optically, zooms the image to twice the normal size so you can confirm sharp focus. Unfortunately, this feature only works when the camera is in standby, so you can't check focus on the fly while you're rolling. 2 XLR jacks are provided for connecting external microphones, audio mixers, or other equipment. 48-volt phantom power can be selected independently for each channel with these switches. Phantom power is a common means of powering certain types of microphones from the camera instead of the microphone's own batteries. Above the lens hood, there's a built-in stereo microphone, but you can also attach an external shotgun microphone. There are more than a dozen different audio settings that can be changed and configured from the main menu, so special attention is advised prior to shooting. Up front, there's a tally light, which can be disabled from the main menu, and a sensor for the infrared remote control. A threaded hole is situated on top of the camera for attaching the shoe adapter that comes standard with the camera, or other accessories such as a post for a camera light. The traditional lens cap has been replaced by a clever lens shutter, which is controlled by a lever on the side. Well, that concludes our overview of the camera. You should now have a good understanding of the major features the Z1 offers, plus a general sense of where the important buttons and controls are located. What we haven't done is tell you how, when, and why to use each of these controls. That comes next. But rather than make you sit through this training video from A to Z, covering subjects that you might not be ready to hear about or even interested in learning at this time, we've broken up the rest of the video into easily digested chapters. Each one is devoted to a specific function of the camera. In this way, you can choose for yourself what's important now and what information can wait for another time. Enjoy.